The space station Nexus Prime hung in the empty void between star systems like a giant metal flower. Its spinning arms stretched out in all directions, each one bigger than Earth's largest cities. Ships from dozens of different worlds docked at its ports every day. Today, something special was happening. Humans were meeting aliens for the first time. Captain Lee Dae-ho stood on the bridge of his ship, the UES Harmony's Edge. Through the wide windows, he could see the massive station growing larger as they approached. His ship was small compared to the alien vessels already docked there. Some of the alien ships looked like they could swallow his cruiser whole. "Captain, we're getting docking instructions from the station," said Lieutenant Yoon Hae-won from her position at the communications desk. Her voice was calm, but Lee could hear the excitement underneath. They were all excited. This was history in the making. "Follow their directions exactly," Lee replied. "We don't want to give them any reason to think we're hostile." Dr. Choi Nari walked onto the bridge carrying a tablet full of notes. She was the team's expert on alien cultures, though, of course, she had never actually met any aliens before today. No human had. She pushed her glasses up her nose and looked at the captain. "The Catherians have been the dominant power in this part of space for over 2,000 years, she said. "They control 47 star systems and have client species, in dozens more. They're very proud of their achievements." "And they think we're primitives," Lee said. It wasn't a question. The early radio messages between Earth and the Catherian Confederation had made that clear enough. "They do," Choi confirmed, "but that might work in our favor. If they underestimate us, we might learn more about them than they learn about us." The Harmony's Edge slid into its assigned docking bay with barely a bump. Lee had handpicked his crew for this mission. They were the best of the best, trained for diplomacy, but ready for anything. As they prepared to board the station, Lee checked his uniform one last time. The dark blue fabric bore the insignia of the United Earth Space Command. He hoped it would earn them respect. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. The air that flowed in smelled different, cleaner somehow, with a metallic tang. Lee stepped through. First, followed by Dr. Choi and 6 security officers. The corridor beyond was huge, built for beings much larger than humans. Their guide was waiting for them. The creature stood nearly 3 meters tall with dark green scales covering its body. Its head was long and narrow, like a crocodile's, but its eyes showed intelligence. It wore robes of deep purple that marked it as a diplomatic official. "I am Sub-Coordinator Thekran," the alien said through a translation device hanging around its neck. The voice was mechanical but clear. "Welcome to Nexus Prime, humans. You are smaller than expected." Lee bit back his first response. Instead, he smiled politely. "Thank you for hosting us, Sub-Coordinator. I am Captain Lee Dae-ho, representing Earth and her colonies." The alien's head tilted slightly. "Yes, your 12 little worlds. How quaint. Follow me. The High Arbiter is waiting." They walked through, corridors filled with amazing sights. Beings from dozens of different worlds moved past them. Some walked on 2 legs like humans, others on 4 or 6. A few floated in containers filled with liquid. All of them stopped to stare at the humans. Some pointed. A few made sounds that might have been laughter. The meeting chamber was enormous, with a ceiling that disappeared into shadows high above. The High Arbiter sat on a raised platform that made him look even bigger than he already was. Velthak was old. Lee could tell by the darker patches on his scales and the way he moved, slowly and carefully, but his eyes were sharp and calculating. Around the chamber, other Catherians sat in smaller chairs. Some wore military uniforms covered in decorations. Others had the flowing robes of government officials. All of them watched the humans with expressions that looked amused. "So," High Arbiter Velthak said, his voice booming through the chamber even with the translator, "these are the mammals who think they belong among the stars." Dr. Choi stepped forward and bowed slightly. "High Arbiter, we come in peace, seeking friendship and understanding between our peoples." The response was not what they expected. Laughter filled the chamber. Not just chuckles, but loud, mocking laughter that echoed off the walls. Some of the Catherians slapped their tails against the floor in what was clearly their version of applause. "Friendship?" Velthak said when the laughter died down. "Understanding?" You have been in space for what? 50 of your years? We have ruled the stars for millennia. What could we possibly learn from creatures who still fight wars on their homeworld? Lee felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his voice level. We may be new to space, High Arbiter, but we've learned much in our short time among the stars. Our colonies are thriving, our technology advancing rapidly. Technology? Ambassador Kixtall spoke up from his position near the platform. His voice dripped with disdain. You use chemical rockets to crawl between worlds. Your ships are held, together with metal plates and hope. You are children playing with toys. We've come here to discuss territorial agreements, Dr. Choi said, trying to bring the conversation back to diplomacy. Earth claims sovereignty over our 12 colony worlds and the space around them. The laughter started again, louder this time. High Arbiter Velthak raised one clawed hand, and the chamber fell silent. Claims? He said. You claim nothing, mammals. You exist in space by our grace. Your colonies are specks of dust in the cosmic wind. We could sweep them away without effort. Then why haven't you? Lee asked before he could stop himself. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Velthak's eyes narrowed, studying the human captain with new interest. Because, the High Arbiter said slowly, we are not monsters. We believe in order, in civilization. When a new species discovers fire, we do not stamp out the flame. We guide it, control it, make sure it does not burn out of control. You're offering us protectorate status, Dr. Choi said. Subordination. We are offering you survival, Kixtall snapped. Accept our guidance and your species will prosper, under Catherian wisdom. Refuse and, well, accidents happen in space. Ships disappear, colonies go silent. Such a shame when primitives attempt tasks beyond their abilities. Lieutenant Yoon had been quietly recording everything through her helmet camera. Now she spoke for the first time since entering the chamber. And if we refuse? She asked. Then you will learn the price of arrogance, Velthak said. We give you 30 of your standard days to consider our generous offer. Accept our protection, submit to our authority, and live peacefully as our clients. Refuse, and face the consequences of your foolishness. The consequences? Lee asked. The full might of the Catherian fleet, the High Arbiter replied. 47 warships, including our flagship, the Pride of Velthak, against your... What do you have? A few patrol boats? Some converted cargo ships? The humans said nothing. They had no fleet to speak of as far as the Catherians knew. Earth's military consisted mainly of ground forces and atmospheric fighters. 30 days, Velthak repeated. Choose wisely, mammals. This offer will not be repeated. The meeting ended with formal farewells that felt more like dismissals. As they walked back through the corridors to their ship, Lee noticed the stairs. Again. But now they felt different. Not curious, but pitying. The other species had watched the exchange and seen the Catherians put the humans in their place. Back aboard the Harmony's Edge, Lee called his senior staff to the briefing room. Dr. Choi was already there, her face pale with anger. Arrogant lizards, she muttered, then caught herself. I'm sorry, Captain. That was unprofessional. But accurate, Lee replied. They made their position clear. Submit or be destroyed. Sir, Lieutenant Yoon said, I transmitted everything. Back to Earth Command as it happened. They'll have seen the whole meeting by now. Lee nodded. The quantum communication link meant Earth would know what had happened almost instantly. He wondered what Admiral Park and the Defense Council would make of it all. What are our orders, Captain? Asked Commander Kim Tae-min, his tactical officer. We go home, Lee said, and we let Earth decide how to respond. As the Harmony's Edge undocked from Nexus Prime, Lee stood at the viewport watching the alien station shrink behind them. The Catherians thought humans were weak, primitive, helpless. They had laughed at Earth's claims and mocked humanity's achievements. They had no idea what they had just awakened. In 30 days, they would learn that humans did not kneel easily. In 30 days, they would discover that Earth's children had teeth. In 30 days, the galaxy would see what happened when someone threatened humanity's freedom. The journey home would take 2 weeks through hyperspace. Lee suspected that would Be just enough time for Earth to prepare its response. He smiled grimly as the stars shifted around them, carrying them home. The Catherians expected humanity to submit. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Deep beneath the Swiss mountains, in rooms carved from solid rock, the most powerful people on Earth gathered around a table that had seen many crises. But none quite like this one. Admiral Park Seo-jin sat at the head of the table, her uniform crisp, despite the long hours she had been working since the transmission from Nexus Prime arrived. The holographic display above the table showed the recording from Captain Lee's helmet camera. For the third time in 2 hours, the assembled leaders watched the Catherian High Arbiter mock humanity and threaten their colonies. Each viewing made the laughter sound more insulting, the threats more real. 30 days, said President Chen, shaking his head. They give us 30 days to surrender our freedom. Or they'll destroy us, added Secretary General Martinez from the United Nations. 47 warships, including their flagship that's supposed to be the size of a small city. Admiral Park touched a control, and the display changed. Now it showed star charts marking humanity's 12 colony worlds. Red symbols appeared around each one, Catherian ships moving into position. They're not waiting, she said. Our long-range sensors show Catherian vessels approaching every human colony. They're taking positions for orbital bombardment. Dr. Williams from the Colonial Administration leaned forward. The colonies are already panicking. New Sol sent a message begging us to accept the Catherian terms. They have 2 million people down there. All our colonies combined have 15 million citizens, President Chen said quietly, against their 47 warships. What can we do? We fight, Admiral Park said simply. The room fell silent. Several faces turned to stare at her. Finally, General Rodriguez from the Army spoke up. Admiral, with respect, we have 12 patrol ships and some orbital defense platforms. Against 47 alien warships? That's not a fight. That's suicide. Park smiled for the first time since the meeting began. General, how long have you known me? 15 years, Admiral. Since we served together in the Titan campaign. In all that time, have you ever known me to suggest suicide? Rodriguez thought about it. No, ma'am. But I also haven't seen you work miracles. Maybe it's time you did. Park touched another control. The display changed again, showing what looked like a massive construction project. Huge metal beams stretched across space, forming the skeleton of something enormous. What is that? President Chen asked. Project Mjolnir, Park replied. Authorized by Executive Order 237-1, signed 15 years ago after the first radio signals from space proved we weren't alone in the universe. The image rotated, showing the construction from different angles. As it turned, the shape became clearer. It was a ship, but not like any ship humanity had ever built before. This was a weapon, pure and simple. How big is it? Secretary General Martinez asked. 1 kilometer, 900 meters long, Park said. Mass, 4.7 million tons. Crew complement, 3,000. Designation, UES Iron Will, first ship of the Dreadnought class. The room erupted in questions. How had this been kept secret? Where was it built? How much did it cost? Park held up her hand for silence. For 15 years, while you all argued about budgets and politics, Earth's best engineers have been working in the hidden shipyards around Europa. Every breakthrough in materials science, every advance in fusion technology, every improvement in weapon systems, it all went into this ship. 1 ship against 47, Dr. Williams asked. Admiral Park's expression grew hard. The Catherians build their ships for speed and energy efficiency. They've been the dominant power for so long, they've forgotten what it means to face real opposition. Their vessels are fast, lightly armored, designed to overawe primitive species into submission. She touched the controls again. Technical specifications filled the air above the table. Armor thickness, weapon ranges, power output, numbers that made even the military officers whistle in amazement. The Iron Will is built differently, Park continued. Triple-layered armor plating that can absorb direct hits from fusion weapons. 8 primary railgun turrets that can punch through a mountain. Point defense systems that can track a bullet in flight. And enough fusion torpedoes to crack a moon. Where did we get the technology for all this? President Chen asked. We built it ourselves. Park said proudly. Humans may be new to space, but we've been building weapons for thousands of years. We know how to hurt things. Commander Kim Tae-min, who had arrived on Earth with Captain Lee, stepped forward from where he had been standing against the wall. I've reviewed the Catherian ship specifications from our sensor scans at Nexus Prime, he said. Their vessels rely heavily on energy shielding and speed for defense. They're not built to take hits and keep fighting. You're saying we can win? General Rodriguez asked. I'm saying we can hurt them badly enough to make them reconsider, Kim replied. The Iron Will might not survive a fight with their entire fleet, but it won't go down easily. And when word spreads about what happened, other species will realize the Catherians can be challenged, Admiral Park finished. Their empire is built on fear and the belief that they're invincible. Crack that belief, and their whole system starts to crumble. President Chen looked around the table at the other leaders. This is insane. We're talking about starting a war with a galactic empire. No, Park corrected. They started the war when they threatened our colonies. We're talking about finishing it. The debate continued for another hour. Some argued for negotiation, for finding a middle ground that might satisfy the Catherians without surrendering completely. Others pointed out that submission now would only delay the inevitable. Eventually, the aliens would demand more and more until humanity had nothing left. In the end, the vote was closer than Park had hoped, but decisive enough. 7 votes for war, 3 for continued negotiation, 2 abstentions. Earth would fight. Admiral, President Chen said after the vote was recorded, you have full authorization to proceed with military operations. God help us all. Park stood and saluted. Thank you, Mr. President. Earth's children will not kneel to anyone. After the politicians left, Park remained in the war room with her military staff. Captain Lee had been called down from orbit, and he stood studying the technical specifications of his new command. She's beautiful, he said finally. And terrifying. She needs to be both, Park replied. Daeho, I'm giving you the Iron Will because you've seen the enemy face to face. You know what we're up against. When do we launch? Lee asked. The ship is 97% complete. Final weapons testing will be finished in 3 days. You'll have 2 weeks to train your crew before the Catherian deadline expires. 2 weeks to learn how to operate the most advanced warship in human history, Commander Kim said. No pressure. You'll manage, Park said confidently. I've handpicked your crew from the best officers in the fleet, and the ship's AI will help with the technical aspects. AI? Lee asked. We call it Aegis. It can't make command decisions, that's still up to you, but it can coordinate weapons, shields, damage control, everything you need to fight effectively. Lee nodded slowly. What about the colonies? If we're wrong about this, if the Iron Will isn't enough, then we'll have shown the galaxy that humanity doesn't surrender without a fight, Park said. And maybe, just maybe, that will inspire others to resist Catherian domination. A new voice spoke from the doorway. Dr. Choi Nari had been standing there listening, still wearing her civilian clothes from the diplomatic mission. Admiral, I request permission to accompany the Iron Will as an observer. Doctor, this isn't a research mission, Park warned. This is war, which is exactly why you need someone to document what happens, Choi replied. If we win, the galaxy needs to know how. If we lose, someone should record why we chose to fight. Lee looked at Admiral Park, who nodded slightly. Very well, Doctor. But you'll follow orders like everyone else aboard my ship. Understood, Captain. Over the next hour, Park briefed them on the Iron Will's capabilities in detail. The railgun batteries that could fire projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. The fusion torpedoes that could burn through any known armor. The point defense grid that could stop incoming missiles and fighters. What about their numbers advantage? Kim asked. 47 ships is still 47 ships. True, Park admitted. But they'll probably attack in waves, trying to overwhelm us with coordinated strikes. That gives us opportunities to defeat them in detail if we're smart about it. And if they're smart enough to all attack at once? Park's smile was grim. Then we make them pay such a terrible price for victory that they'll think twice before threatening any other species. As the meeting broke up, Lee found himself alone with Admiral Park. She looked older than he remembered, worn down by the weight of command and the decisions she had to make. Admiral, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you really think we can win? Park was quiet for a long moment, staring at the holographic display that still showed the Iron Will's specifications. I think we can surprise them, she said finally, and sometimes that's enough. And if it's not, then we'll have died free on our feet, fighting for what we believe in. There are worse fates, Captain. Lee saluted and turned to leave. At the Osor doorway, Park's voice stopped him. Deho! Give them hell. Yes, ma'am. It will be my pleasure. Outside, the Swiss mountains stood silent under a star. The hidden shipyard around Europa was humanity's best-kept secret. For 15 years, construction crews had worked in shifts around the clock, building something that had never existed before. Now, as Captain Lee Dae-ho stepped through the airlock onto the bridge of the UES Iron Will, he finally understood what they had created. The bridge was enormous, larger than most people's homes. Workstations arranged in perfect rows faced a main view screen that stretched from floor to ceiling. Every surface gleamed with clean metal and advanced displays. The air smelled of new electronics and fresh paint. Captain on the bridge, someone called out, and 3,000 voices across the ship's communications system echoed the greeting. Lee had never commanded anything larger than a light cruiser with a crew of 200. The responsibility felt crushing. Commander Kim Tae-min was already at the tactical station, his fingers dancing across holographic controls as he familiarized himself with the ship's weapons systems. Charts and target data floated in the air, around him, painting pictures of destruction that made Lee's stomach tighten. "Status report," Lee ordered as he settled into the captain's chair. The seat was perfectly designed for long watches, with built-in displays and direct neural interface ports that would let him feel the ship's systems like extensions of his own body. "All systems operational, Captain," Kim reported. "Primary railgun, batteries charged and ready, fusion torpedo magazines fully loaded, point defense grid active. We're ready for anything." Lieutenant Yoon Hai-wan looked up from the communication station. "Sir, Admiral Park is requesting a final briefing before we depart. Put her through." The main screen flickered, showing Admiral Park in the command center back on Earth. Behind her, Lee could see dozens of officers monitoring displays that tracked Catherian ship movements throughout human space. "Captain Lee, final intelligence. Update," Park began without preamble. "The Catherian fleet has taken positions around all 12 colonies. They're broadcasting surrender demands on all frequencies. Our people are scared." "What's the enemy's exact composition?" Lee asked. 47 vessels confirmed, 1 heavy battleship, their flagship Pride of Velthok, 12 medium cruisers, 24 light cruisers, and 10 scout ships. Total estimated. Crew, 60,000. Lee felt his mouth go dry. 60,000 aliens against his 3,000 humans. The numbers were sobering. "Sir," Dr. Choi Nari spoke up from her observer station. "I've been analyzing their tactical formations. They're arranged for intimidation, not efficient combat. Ships spread out to look impressive rather than concentrated for mutual support." "That's good news," Kim said. "If they attack in their current formation, we can defeat them piecemeal." "Don't count on them being stupid," Lee warned. "They didn't build an empire by making obvious mistakes." A new voice joined the conversation. Calm, artificial, but somehow reassuring. "Captain, this is Aegis, ship's AI coming online. All systems integrated and ready for combat operations." Lee had read about the artificial intelligence, but hearing it speak was different. The voice sounded almost human, with just enough digital precision to remind you what it was. "Aegis, tactical assessment of our chances against the Catherian fleet. Based on available data, direct engagement with the entire enemy fleet simultaneously would result in a 73% probability of mission failure. However, if we can force them to engage in smaller groups, our success probability increases to 61%. "Better odds than I expected," Lee admitted. "The Iron Will was designed specifically for this scenario, Captain. We may be outnumbered, but we are not outgunned." Admiral Park's voice drew their attention back to the screen. "Captain, you have full discretion on tactics and engagement. Your mission is simple. Protect the colonies and demonstrate that humanity will not be conquered." "Understood, Admiral. We won't let you down." "I know you won't. Good hunting, Iron." "Will." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in relative quiet. Lee looked around at his crew. 3,000 men and women from every nation on Earth, united in purpose. They had trained for this moment, but training was different from reality. All stations report readiness for departure, Lee ordered. One by one, department heads confirmed their status. Engineering reported fusion reactors at full power. Weapons confirmed all batteries loaded and targeted. Navigation had calculated their course to the Kepler 442 system, where the largest concentration of Catherian ships waited. "Helm, take us out," Lee commanded. The iron will moved like a living thing, despite its massive size. Through the view screen, Lee watched Europa fall away beneath them. The hidden shipyard was already powering down, its job complete. They had built humanity's sword, and now it was time to use it. As they cleared Jupiter's gravity well, Lee called for a ship-wide address. His voice would reach every compartment, every duty station, every person aboard the vessel that carried Earth's hopes. "This is the captain speaking. In 1 hour we will enter hyperspace for the Kepler 442 system. There we will face an enemy that thinks we're primitives, that believes we'll surrender without a fight. They're about to learn how wrong they are." He paused, thinking of the words that would send 3,000 people into battle. "We are the children of Earth, inheritors of a world that has known war since humans first picked up stones to defend their families. Today we carry that legacy to the stars. We fight not for conquest, but for freedom, not for empire, but for the right to exist as equals among the stars." The silence on the bridge was complete. Even Aegis seemed to be listening. "The enemy expects us to kneel, to accept their dominion over us. Instead, we will show them the price of threatening humanity. We will teach them that Earth's children bow to no one." Across the ship, 3,000 voices responded as one. "Earth's children bow to no one." The hyperspace jump was smoother than Lee had expected. One moment, stars filled the view screen in familiar patterns. The next, they were streaking lines of light as the iron will slipped between dimensions, crossing light years in hours instead of decades. During the journey, Lee walked through his ship, meeting the crew and seeing the vessel that would carry them into battle. The armor plating was 3 meters thick in some places, layered with materials that could absorb and dissipate the energy from fusion weapons. The railgun turrets were marvels of engineering, each one capable of accelerating projectiles to speeds that would make them relativistic weapons. In the torpedo bay, Lee met Chief Petty Officer Han Min-soo, who had been loading fusion warheads since before dawn. "How many torpedoes do we carry, Chief?" Lee asked. 450, Captain. Each one with a yield of 50 megatons. We could level continents with this arsenal. Let's hope we don't need to use them all." "Sir?" Han looked confused. "We're going into battle outnumbered 15 to 1. We'll need every advantage we can get." Lee nodded. The chief was right, of course, but part of him hoped the Catherians would see reason once they realized what they were facing. War was necessary sometimes, but it was never something to celebrate. In the medical bay, Dr. Songju Wan was preparing for casualties. Surgical robots stood ready alongside human surgeons. Medical supplies were distributed throughout the ship to handle damage to multiple sections simultaneously. "How many can you handle, Doctor?" Lee asked. "In optimal conditions, about 200 serious casualties. But Captain, if we take enough damage to injure 200 people, we're probably not going to survive the battle anyway." Lee hoped she was wrong about that. The engineering section was the heart of the ship, where massive fusion reactors generated enough power to run a small city. Chief Engineer Park Hae-jin showed Lee the damage control systems that could seal breaches, reroute power, and keep the ship fighting even after taking terrible punishment. "The ship can lose up to 40% of its systems and still fight effectively," she explained. "We've got redundancy on top of redundancy. They'll have to tear us apart piece by piece to stop us. Let's make sure it doesn't come to that," Lee said. As they neared their destination, the crew went to battle stations. Throughout the ship, blast doors sealed, weapons came online, and 3,000 people prepared to face an enemy that had ruled the stars for millennia. On the bridge, Commander Kim studied the tactical displays showing their approach to Kepler 442. "Captain, we'll drop out of hyperspace in 10 minutes. Long-range sensors are already picking up the Catherian fleet. How many ships?" "All 47, sir. They're arranged in a defensive formation around the 4th planet. Looks like they're protecting something important there." Lee nodded. Intelligence suggested the Cytherians had established a forward base on Kepler 442. Destroying it would send a message that nowhere in space was safe from human retaliation. Aegis, final systems check. All systems optimal, Captain. Weapons charged. Shields raised. Crew at battle stations. The Iron Will is ready for combat. Dr. Choi looked up from her observation post. Captain, are you going to offer them a chance to withdraw? Lee considered it. In the old days of Earth's wars, honorable commanders sometimes offered their enemies a chance to surrender before battle began. But this wasn't about honor. This was about survival. No, Doctor, they had their chance for peace at Nexus Prime. They chose threats and mockery instead. Now they face the consequences. The final minute ticked away in silence. Then War Chief Morgan stood on the bridge of the Pride of Velthak, studying the strange human vessel that had just appeared at the edge of the system. For 40 years, he had commanded Cytherian fleets in campaigns across the galaxy. He had crushed rebellions, conquered primitive worlds, and brought order to chaotic star systems. But he had never seen anything quite like the ship now approaching his fleet. Analysis, he ordered his tactical officer. Sir, the vessel is approximately 2 kilometers in length. Mass readings are unusual. Our sensors indicate it's far denser than any ship of comparable size should be. Armament? Unknown, sir. The hull configuration doesn't match any known design patterns. There are what appear to be weapon mounts, but they're unlike anything in our databases. Morgan's tail twitched with annoyance. The mammals were supposed to be primitives, barely capable of interstellar travel. This ship suggested otherwise. But one vessel against 47 was still suicide, no matter how advanced it might be. Open a channel to the human ship, he ordered. The view screen showed the human captain, a small, dark-haired mammal wearing a blue uniform. The creature looked calm, almost relaxed, despite facing impossible odds. Morgan had seen that expression before, usually on the faces of fanatics who preferred death to surrender. I am War Chief Morgan of the Cytherian Imperial Fleet, he announced. You will surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in the destruction of your vessel and the execution of your crew. I don't think so, the human replied in a voice that carried no fear. This is Captain Lee Dae-ho of the United Earth ship Iron Will. You have 30 seconds to begin withdrawing from this system, or we will remove you by force. The bridge erupted in laughter. Even Morgan found himself amused by the mammal's audacity. Remove them by force? With one ship? Captain, the war chief said when the laughter died down, you face 47 warships of the Cytherian fleet. Your vessel, while larger than expected, is still only one ship. Do you truly believe you can defeat us all? We're about to find out, Lee replied, and cut the transmission. Morgan stared at the blank screen for a moment, then turned to his fleet communications officer. Order the Swift Talon to disable the human vessel. Damage their engines and weapons, but keep the hull intact. I want to interrogate their captain personally. Yes, sir. The Swift Talon was a light cruiser, fast and maneuverable, designed for exactly this type of operation. Against most opponents, it would be severe overkill. Against a single primitive vessel, it should be more than sufficient. Captain Jektar commanded the Swift Talon with the confidence of someone who had never lost a battle. His ship was one of the newest in the fleet, equipped with the latest energy weapons and defensive systems. As he approached the human vessel, he felt almost sorry for the mammals. They were about to learn why the Cytherians ruled the stars. Target their engine section, Jektar ordered. Minimum power. We want them disabled, not destroyed. Sir, his tactical officer reported, I'm reading some unusual energy signatures from their ship. The power output is far higher than anything that size should be capable of producing. Irrelevant, Jektar replied. They're still mammals playing with technology they don't understand. Fire when ready. On the Iron Will's bridge, Commander Kim watched the approaching Cytherian ship with professional interest. The alien vessel was sleek and fast, built for speed rather than durability. Its weapons were already charging, energy readings climbing toward firing levels. Captain, Kim reported, the lead ship is targeting our engines. They want to disable us. How thoughtful, Lee said dryly. Aegis, target analysis on the approaching vessel. Light cruiser configuration, the AI responded, immediately. Estimated crew of 800. Primary armament consists of directed energy weapons, moderate yield. Defensive systems rely on energy shielding rather than physical armor. Assessment, vulnerable to kinetic impact weapons. Range to target, 50,000 kilometers and closing. Lee looked around his bridge at the crew who had trained for this moment. They were ready. More than ready. They were eager to show these arrogant aliens what humans could do when threatened. Mr. Kim, lock onto the approaching vessel with turret number 1. Target locked, sir. Fire. The Iron Will spoke with a voice like thunder. The forward railgun turret rotated with mechanical precision, its magnetic accelerators building. Power in microseconds. When it fired, the tungsten projectile left the barrel at 12% of light speed, crossing the distance to the swift Talon in less than a heartbeat. Captain Jektar had time to see something streak across his view screen. Before his ship simply ceased to exist, the relativistic projectile struck the swift Talon's energy shields and passed through them like they weren't there. It hit the cruiser's hull, and the kinetic energy transfer was instantaneous and total. The swift Talon didn't explode in the traditional sense. The impact was so violent that the ship's matter was converted to plasma in milliseconds. Where a moment before there had been a warship with 800 crew members, now there was only an expanding cloud of superheated gas. On the Pride of Velthak's bridge, every alarm started screaming at once. Morgan stared at his tactical display in shock, trying to understand what he was seeing. One moment, the swift Talon had been approaching the human ship. The next, it was gone. "Report!" he roared. "Sir," his tactical officer stammered, "the swift Talon has been destroyed." "I'm reading no survivors, no debris larger than a few meters. It's like the ship was vaporized." "Impossible. What weapon could—" "Sir, energy spike from the human vessel. They're charging weapons again." On the Iron Will, Captain Lee felt a grim satisfaction as he watched the Catherian formation react to the destruction of their scout ship. The alien vessels were breaking their pretty formation, moving into actual combat positions. Finally, they were taking this seriously. Aegis tactical assessment. Enemy fleet is reforming into attack formation. Multiple ships charging weapons. Estimated time to effective firing range 4 minutes. Kim, how many ships can we engage simultaneously? With all 8 turrets firing, we could potentially destroy 8 ships in the opening salvo. But after that, they'll be close enough for their energy weapons to be effective. Lee nodded. The Iron Will was built to take punishment, but it wasn't invincible. If all 46 remaining ships concentrated their fire, even his ship's massive armor might not be enough. "Sir," Lieutenant Yoon reported from communications, "we're receiving multiple transmissions from the Catherian fleet. They're demanding to know what weapon we used." "Put War Chief Morgan through," Lee ordered. The alien commander's face appeared on the screen, but his expression had changed completely. Gone was the amused condescension from their earlier conversation. Now, Morgan looked like what he was, a military professional facing an unexpected threat. "What weapon did you use?" Morgan demanded without preamble. "Our sensors detected no energy buildup, no missile launch. How did you destroy the swift Talon?" "Simple kinetic impact," Lee replied honestly. "We accelerated a small projectile to very high speed and let physics do the rest." "Impossible. No civilization has that technology." "You're wrong about that, War Chief. And you're wrong about something else, too." "What? You think you're facing primitives. You're not. You're facing humans. And humans have been perfecting the art of war for thousands of years." Lee cut the transmission again and turned to his crew. Around them, 46 alien warships were accelerating toward the Iron Will, their weapons charging for what they thought would be an easy victory. "All stations, combat alert," Lee announced. "Enemy ships closing to engagement range. Prepare for full fleet action." On the Catherian flagship, War Chief Morgan was issuing rapid orders to his fleet commanders. The loss of the swift Talon had shocked him, but he was too experienced to let one surprise defeat affect his judgment. The humans had one advanced weapon, but they were still outnumbered and surrounded. "All ships, attack formation Delta," he commanded. "Concentrate fire on their forward sections. If we can destroy their weapon systems, they're helpless." Across the Catherian fleet, crews prepared for battle with the confidence of a species that had never known defeat. They had superior numbers, proven technology, and centuries of combat experience. One ship, no matter how advanced, could not stand against them all. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Dr. Choi Na-ri sat at her observation station, recording everything for the historical record. As a xenobiologist, she had studied alien psychology and behavior. The Catherians were reacting exactly as she had predicted, with shock, then anger, then overconfidence, as they relied on their numerical advantage. "Captain," she said quietly, "they're going to attack in waves. Their formation suggests they'll try to overwhelm us with coordinated strikes." "Let them come," Lee replied. The Iron Will was built for this. The first wave of Catherian ships reached firing range and opened up with everything they had. Energy beams lanced through space, striking the Iron Will's armor and blazing like miniature suns against its hull. The ship shuddered under the impact, but the massive armor plating held. "Damage report," Lee called. "Superficial scoring on outer." "Armor plates," came the reply from engineering. "No penetration. All systems nominal." The Catherians had just fired their... War Chief Morgan watched in growing horror as his fleet died around him. The human ship moved through space like a predator among prey, its massive guns speaking with voices of thunder. Each time the Iron Will fired, another Catherian vessel vanished in a flash of vaporized metal and plasma. "Status report!" he roared over the chaos on his bridge. "Sir, we've lost 12 ships in the last 10 minutes, his tactical officer reported, his voice shaking. "The Crimson Blade, the Star Piercer, the Night Wind, all destroyed. Their weapon punches right through our shields like they're not even there. How is that possible? Our energy shields have stopped every weapon known to galactic civilization. Sir, their projectiles aren't energy-based. They're solid matter moving at incredible speeds. Our shields are designed to disperse energy, not stop physical objects traveling at near-light velocity." Morgan's tail lashed with fury and frustration. For 2,000 years, Catherian military doctrine had been built around energy weapons and defensive shields. No one had thought to prepare for a species that would accelerate chunks of metal to relativistic speeds and simply smash through defenses. On the Iron Will's bridge, Captain Lee watched his tactical display with professional satisfaction. The Catherian fleet was in chaos, their pretty formations broken as ships tried to avoid the devastating railgun fire. But they were still dangerous. 46 ships against one, even if that one was the most advanced warship humanity had ever built. "Kim, what's our ammunition status?" Lee asked. "We've fired 63 rounds from the primary batteries," Commander Kim reported. "At this rate, we can maintain fire for another 40 minutes before we need to switch to fusion torpedoes." "And their response?" "They're trying to get close enough for their energy weapons to be fully effective. Some of the faster ships are attempting flanking maneuvers." Lee nodded. The Catherians weren't stupid. They had figured out that their weapons needed to concentrate fire on specific points to penetrate the Iron Will's armor, and they were right. Even his ship's massive defenses had limits. Aegis, damage assessment. Outer armor plating showing wear from concentrated energy strikes, the AI reported. Current integrity at 87%. Estimate 30 minutes of sustained fire before we risk penetration to secondary systems. "Sir," Lieutenant Yoon called from communications, "the Catherian command ship is hailing us again. Put them through." War Chief Morgan's face appeared on the main screen, but he looked different now. The arrogant confidence was gone, replaced by the desperate anger of a commander watching his forces being destroyed. "What are you?" Morgan demanded. "What kind of species builds weapons like this?" "The kind that doesn't surrender," Lee replied calmly. "Withdraw your forces, War Chief. You've lost enough ships today." "Withdraw?" Morgan's voice rose to a shriek. "I command the greatest fleet in Catherian history. I will not be defeated by a single ship crewed by primitives." "Then you'll die here," Lee said simply, and cut the transmission. But Morgan was already issuing new orders to his remaining ships. If conventional tactics wouldn't work, he would try something more desperate. "All ships, concentrate fire on the human vessel's forward section," he commanded. "Pour everything we have into their weapon systems. If we can destroy their guns, they're helpless." "Sir," his tactical officer said hesitantly, "that will require us to close to very short range. We'll be easy targets for their remaining weapons." "Do it!" Morgan roared. The pride of the Cytherian Empire will not be broken by mammals. Across the battlefield, 34 surviving Cytherian ships accelerated toward the Iron Will, their weapons charging for a coordinated strike. It was a desperate gamble. Get close enough to overwhelm the human ship's defenses before it could destroy them all. On the Iron Will, alarms began sounding as the enemy fleet's intentions became clear. "Captain," Kim reported, "they're massing for a concentrated attack. All remaining ships converging on our position. Point defense status? All systems online and tracking multiple targets. But, sir, there are too many of them. Some will get through." Lee looked around his bridge at the crew who had followed him into this impossible battle. They had already accomplished more than anyone thought possible, destroying nearly a third of the enemy fleet. But the next few minutes would determine whether humanity's message would be heard across the galaxy. "All hands, brace for impact," he announced ship-wide. "They're coming in hard and fast. Show them what human determination looks like." The Cytherian attack came like a wave of fire. 34 ships opened up with every weapon they had, pouring energy into the Iron Will's forward sections. The ship's point defense grid responded instantly, tracking and destroying incoming missiles while trying to intercept the smaller energy beams. But there were too many targets. Energy bolts slammed into the Iron Will's armor like hammers against an anvil. The outer plating, already weakened by previous attacks, began to buckle and crack under the concentrated assault. "Hull breach on Deck 7, came a report from damage control. "Emergency force fields in place. Armor penetration in Section C4. Fire in the forward magazine." Lee gripped his command chair as the ship shuddered around him. This was what the Iron Will had been built for. To take punishment that would destroy any other vessel and keep fighting. But even the best armor had limits. "Return fire," he ordered. "All weapons. Maximum rate." The Iron Will's 8 railgun turrets swiveled toward the attacking ships and began firing as fast as their magnetic accelerators could cycle. At this range, they couldn't miss. Cytherian ships vanished one after another, but their sacrifice was achieving its goal. The human ship was being damaged faster than it could destroy its attackers. "Sir," Kim called over the noise of battle, "the command ship is moving into ramming position." Lee looked at his tactical display and saw the pride of Velthak accelerating directly toward them. The massive Cytherian flagship was easily half the size of the Iron Will, and at its current speed, the impact would damage both ships severely. "He's trying to disable us," Lee realized. "Damage us enough that the remaining ships can finish us off." "Shall I target the flagship?" Kim asked. Lee considered it. He could destroy the pride of Velthak easily enough. But that would mean killing War Chief Morgan and thousands of crew members who were just following orders. Despite everything, Lee didn't want this to become a massacre. But then he thought of the human colonies, the 15 million people counting on the Iron Will to protect them. The Cytherians had made their choice when they threatened innocent civilians. "Target the flagship," he ordered. "All forward batteries." But before the guns could fire, Dr. Choi spoke up from her observation station. "Captain, wait! Look at their formation." Lee glanced at the tactical display and understood immediately. The remaining Cytherian ships were positioned behind their flagship, using it as a shield. If he destroyed the pride of Velthak now, the explosion would obscure his sensors and give the other ships time to close range. "Clever," he admitted. "Morgan's not just trying to ram us. He's giving his remaining ships cover for a final assault." The Iron Will shook again as more energy beams found their mark. Damage reports flooded in from across the ship. Hull breaches, system failures, injured crew members. But the ship's massive redundancy was keeping them in the fight. "Sir," Kim said urgently, "the flagship will reach ramming distance in 30 seconds. Orders." Lee made a decision that would be remembered for centuries. Instead of targeting the flagship, he ordered his guns to fire past it, targeting the ships hiding behind it. The railgun projectiles, moving at significant fractions of light. Speed punched through the pride of Velthak's hull without slowing down and struck the vessels beyond. 3 more Cytherian ships died in as many seconds. But the flagship kept coming, its crew committed to their suicide run. "All hands, brace for collision," Lee announced. The pride of Velthak struck the Iron Will amidships like a dagger thrust by an angry god. Both ships groaned and screamed as Metal tore and systems failed. The Iron Will's thick armor saved it from destruction, but the impact sent shockwaves through every deck and compartment. On the Pride of Velthak's bridge, War Chief Morgan picked himself up from the deck where the collision had thrown him. Emergency lighting bathed everything in red, and alarms shrieked warnings about hull breaches and system failures. "Status!" he demanded. "Sir, we're locked against their hull. Our forward sections are completely destroyed, but we're still alive. Most importantly, their forward weapon batteries are offline." Morgan felt a surge of fierce satisfaction. The ramming attack had worked. The human ship's main guns were damaged or destroyed, leaving it vulnerable to the remaining ships of his fleet. "Signal all vessels," he ordered. "Close range and finish them." Today, the Cytherian Empire proves that no one can stand against us. But as the surviving alien ships moved in for the kill, they were about to learn that the Iron Will had more than one way to fight. Captain Lee had been saving something for exactly this situation. "Kim," he said calmly, "activate the fusion torpedo batteries. Sir, at this range, the explosions will damage us too." "I know. Fire anyway." Humanity was about to show the galaxy that when Earth's children were cornered, they bit back with nuclear fire. The Iron Will's torpedo tubes opened like the mouths of hungry beasts, and the fusion torpedoes launched from the Iron Will like falling stars, their drives burning bright against the darkness of space. Each one carried enough destructive power to level a city, and at close range, they would damage both fleets. But Captain Lee had made his choice. Better to risk his own ship than let the Cytherians complete their attack. War Chief Morgan watched the approaching weapons with growing dread. His ramming attack had succeeded in damaging the human ship's main guns, but he had not expected them to have secondary weapons of such devastating power. "Evasive maneuvers," he ordered desperately. "All ships, break off attack." But it was too late. The torpedoes struck home with the force of miniature suns. The first explosion vaporized 2 Cytherian cruisers instantly. The second and third turned 3 more ships into expanding clouds of plasma. The shock waves from the detonations slammed into both fleets, damaging friend and foe alike. On the Iron Will's bridge, Lee felt his ship shudder as the fusion explosions washed over its hull. Warning lights flashed as systems overloaded and armor plating buckled from the thermal stress. "Damage report," he called over the noise of alarms and emergency systems. "Outer hull heating beyond safe parameters," Commander Kim reported. "Several secondary systems offline. But the main structure is holding." Enemy status? 7 Cytherian ships destroyed by the torpedo barrage. The flagship is still attached to our hull, but they've lost most of their forward sections. 15 enemy vessels remain active. 15 ships. From the original 47 that had threatened human space, only 15 remained. The Iron Will had accomplished something no one thought possible. It had broken the back of a Cytherian fleet. But the battle wasn't over yet. The surviving enemy ships regrouped at a safe distance, their commanders unsure how to proceed. They had never faced an opponent like this, one that would use weapons so powerful they risked destroying themselves along with their enemies. "Sir," Lieutenant Yoon reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the Cytherian flagship. Put it through." War Chief Morgan appeared on the main screen, but he looked like a different being than the arrogant commander who had started this battle. His scales were dulled with exhaustion, and his uniform was torn and burned. Behind him, his bridge was a ruin of sparking consoles and emergency lighting. "Enough," Morgan said quietly. I request parley." Lee studied the alien commander for a long moment. In Morgan's eyes, he saw something he had not expected: respect. The Cytherian was no longer looking at a primitive mammal, but at a worthy opponent who had earned his place through combat. "Go ahead, War Chief." "Your ship—" Morgan paused, seeming to struggle with the words. "Your ship fights with a ferocity I have never encountered. We underestimated your species. We underestimated you." "Yes, you did. I have commanded fleets for 40 years. I have conquered 17 star systems for the Empire. But I have never faced warriors like you." Morgan's voice carried a tone Lee had not heard from any Cytherian before. Genuine respect. "What are your terms?" Dr. Choi stepped forward from her observation station. As the expedition's diplomatic specialist, this was her moment to speak for humanity. "War Chief Morgan," she said formally, The United Earth government offers the following terms: immediate withdrawal of all Cytherian forces from human space, recognition of human sovereignty over our 12 colony worlds and the space around them, establishment of formal diplomatic relations between our species as equals. Equals. Morgan repeated the word slowly, as if testing its meaning. Yes, I believe you have earned that right today. There's one more thing, Lee added. This battle was broadcast live to Earth and all our colonies. The galaxy will know what happened here. They'll know that the Cytherian Empire can be challenged, that your ships can be destroyed. Morgan's expression hardened slightly. You threaten to damage our reputation. I'm stating a fact, Lee replied. Your empire is built on the belief that you're invincible. We've proved otherwise. How you handle that reality is up to you. For a long moment, the bridge was silent except for the sounds of damage control teams working throughout both ships. Finally, Morgan spoke again. Captain Lee, you have taught me something today. Strength is not measured only in the number of ships or the power of weapons. It is measured in the willingness to fight for what you believe in, even against impossible odds. We learned that lesson a long time ago, Lee said, on a world where we had to fight for everything: food, shelter, territory, freedom. We brought that knowledge with us to the stars. And today, you have brought it to us. Morgan straightened in his command chair, looking more like the military leader he was. I accept your terms. Cytherian forces will withdraw from human space immediately. We will establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth. Sir, Kim interrupted quietly, I'm reading multiple hyperspace signatures approaching the system. Large ships. Lee felt his heart sink. More Cytherian reinforcements would finish what the First Fleet had started. The Iron Will had fought magnificently, but it couldn't survive another battle in its current condition. War Chief, he said, if those are your reinforcements— They are not, Morgan replied, checking his own sensors. Those signatures, they belong to ships from the Zephyrian Republic, the Helian Syndicate, and the Vorthan Collective. Doctor. Choi's eyes widened with understanding. They monitored the battle. They saw what happened here. One by one, alien fleets dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Species that had been subjugated by the Cytherians for centuries, forced to serve as client states or tributaries. They had watched the impossible happen. A single human ship had broken a Cytherian fleet. Captain Lee, came a new voice over the communications system. This is Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Republic. We witnessed your battle. We come to offer our support. More voices joined in, commanders from a dozen different species all saying the same thing. They had seen humanity stand up to the Cytherians, and they wanted to stand with them. War Chief Morgan looked at his tactical display, counting the ships now surrounding his battered fleet. He was outnumbered 5-1 by species that had every reason to hate the Cytherian Empire. It seems, he said, with what might have been admiration, that you have accomplished more than destroying my fleet, Captain. You have started a revolution. We only wanted to be left alone, Lee replied. But if our fight inspires others to seek their freedom, so be it. Dr. Choi activated the ship's main communication array, broadcasting on all frequencies so that every ship in the system could hear her words. To all vessels present, she announced, today marks a new chapter in galactic history. Today, we have proved that no empire, no matter how powerful, has the right to subjugate free peoples. Today, we have shown that courage and determination can overcome any odds. Her words were picked up and retransmitted across the galaxy, spreading from system to system faster than light itself. On 1,000 worlds, subject species heard the message and began to hope. On the pride of Velthak, War Chief Morgan made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Captain Lee, he said formally, I hereby surrender my command to you. The surviving ships of my fleet will escort you back to human space as a gesture of our respect for your victory. That's not necessary, War Chief. Yes, it is, Morgan insisted. My people need to see this. They need to understand that the age of easy conquest is over. There are warriors among the stars now, warriors who will not kneel. 3 weeks later, the Iron Will limped into Earth orbit, escorted by 15 Cytherian warships flying flags of truce. The sight was broadcast live across human space and beyond, showing the galaxy that humanity had not only survived first contact with a hostile alien empire, They had won. Admiral Park So-jin was waiting on the bridge when Captain Lee finally made it back to Earth. Her first words were not about the battle or the diplomatic implications of what he had accomplished. "How's your crew?" she asked. 17 dead, 43 wounded, Lee reported. "They died fighting for freedom." "They died as heroes," Park corrected. "All of them." Dr. Choi joined them at the viewport, looking out at the blue and white marble. That was humanity's birth world. "Captain, we're receiving diplomatic requests from 47 different species. They all want to establish formal relations with Earth." "As equals?" Lee asked. "As equals," she confirmed. In the months that followed, the Galactic Assembly would offer humanity full membership with territorial sovereignty guaranteed. The Catherian Empire would undergo its own revolution, with War Chief Morgan leading the effort to transform it from a militant empire into a democratic confederation. But all of that was still to come. For now, Captain Lee stood on the bridge of the Iron Will and watched Earth grow larger in the viewport. They had gone to the stars as explorers and returned as warriors. They had been threatened with conquest and responded with defiance. The galaxy had expected diplomacy. The aliens had laughed at humanity's claims and mocked their achievements. They had demanded submission and threatened destruction. Instead, they had learned the most important lesson in galactic history. When you threaten Earth's children, humanity doesn't send diplomats. They send battleships. And those battleships carry the message that has echoed across space ever since that day in the Kepler 442.